Hey, good morning, and welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club. This is our March 2025 selection for the Kids Club. I love the Kids Club. The Kids Club's the best because the kids are the future, and kids love comics. We love comics too. We've got a really good one today for you. It is Bring Me the Head of Susan Lomond, and we are very lucky to be joined here by its author, Connor B. Hello, Connor.
Hello, how are you doing?
Excellent, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right, doing all right.
Nice. So my first question is always the same because I think it kind of gets to the core of what we're trying to do. And it is thus, why comics? Of all the things that you could be doing, of all the ways you could be expressing yourself, what is it about comics that speaks to you, that talks to you, that thrills you, that energizes you?
Oh, good question. I've been thinking about that a lot recently because I've just always done it. I think I just can't not do comics. I think it's always been fun for me. When I was in school, I think that was like the thing that I did when I was supposed to be doing homework. It's just doing little comics and stuff. I was obsessed with like Peanuts and Garfield and newspaper stuff back in the day, and I just couldn't not do it. And then when I got into college, I was just trying to figure out like how kids are, and like 18, 19, trying to figure out what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. And I just kept doing comics. And it wasn't until I moved out to Los Angeles, because I'm from Ohio, that Los Angeles, I was pursuing cartoons, and I just kept wanting to do comics. It's always something that I fall back to, no matter where I'm at in life. If I'm supposed to be doing something, I'm instead doing comics. So it's just something that I've always just had to do. It's just I don't know. It's just it's so much fun. That's
Yeah,
really it. It's the most boring answer, but it's just I just have to do it. I don't know.
I hear you. What's the first comic you remember reading? Not, and I don't mean just like, oh, I read some Richie Rich or something like that, but what was the first thing that like stuck with you that made you go, oh, comics, wow.
Um, when I was a kid, we had this. I grew up in a small town, and we had a very small library. And I remember when I was like, I'd say maybe 13 or 14, I found a copy of Battle Angel Alita, which is this old school manga. That was the first manga I read, and it was like really dark. And it wasn't supposed to be in the kids section. I'm not sure why it was, but it just completely grabbed me. I was obsessed. And then when I was in college, when I really took comics seriously, was I think it was Octopus Pie by Meredith Gran. That was probably the one that definitely lit the fire of like, wow, I could do this, or wow, it's if comics can look like this, then why don't I go for it? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. You were talking about, sort of figuring out that you wanted to make comics in college. Were you going to school for illustration?
Yeah, I went to this Columbus private school, the Columbus College of Art and Design, and that was my major at illustration. So they had some very they had a comics class there. It was talking about like the history of comics and going over and like studying comics and whatnot. It's by one of my old professors, who one of my favorites, Robert Loss. He definitely pointed me in the right direction when it came to comics, especially alternative stuff.
And it was just like a history program rather than like a drawing comics program?
It was both. So it was something that was kind of in its infant stage of like what it is now. Like now they have like a comics major over there, which is really cool. I wish I would have been there for that. But it was mostly studying, but then we did have he did have us apply what we learned into like a comic. It's like nothing too major. It's just like a very short, like draw 1 to 2 pages of this thing that we studied and how it can it apply to your work and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And was there a sense among the professor that like this was a viable thing that you could do, or was it more, hey, we're trying to round out an illustrator's experience, if that makes sense as a question?
It does. I have this conversation a lot with artists that went there, that went to art school, and I think it's a conversation that's passed around a lot. Is if professors, I shouldn't say warn, but if professors talk to you about what to expect after school, right? So I feel like specifically Mr. Lass, he did a good job of just being, you can do comics after school. There's definitely ways that you can do it, but it takes just just doing it, like being very stubborn and uh, going at it, like even if you don't feel like there's an audience, even if you feel like there isn't something there, it's just finding your stride and just making consistent work is what will get you through. And yeah, that's essentially, he didn't really, I guess if you're thinking like if he said like if there's anything you can do it like with it financially, I'm not sure about that, but there's different classes for like portfolio class and stuff like that, but that gets kind of, tedious, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, well, when you look at, like specifically comic schools, like, I don't know, SCAD or, well, all the schools, right?
Kind of.
Those are like short programs that are very kind of intensive and meant to build you a career in comics, whereas an illustration program is generally a little bit different, right? Because they're trying to get you focused on commercial work.
That's true. That's actually very true. That's I totally agree with that. I had an illustration class, portfolio class. His name was Adam Osgood. He was great. He definitely prepared us more for like how we should market ourselves as like our people after school, what to expect and how to move about like social media and stuff. That's when Twitter was still like hopping. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It is about illustration was definitely more so about how you can present, I guess, a brand of yourself too. And comics was just, it felt like you were focusing more on the product itself, which I always liked more. I think I jammed with that a lot more just because I hate like presenting myself and like uh networking in general is can be very tedious, but like I think what I like the most is having my work speak for me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Did you think that like coming out of college you were going to go into commercial art? Is that what the thought was for taking those classes, or did you like, halfway through go, no, 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 comics are the thing I'm doing, that's that?
Well, I didn't treat comics seriously, actually, as a career, or
Mm.
not right away. I thought that it was too far out of reach, especially to make a living on. Um, I really liked, I still do, of course, I like cartoons. And I remember one of my professors said, well, if you like comics and you like cartoons, then you should look into storyboarding. And I thought, why not? So when I had moved out here, it was in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I'll make a living off of doing storyboarding and I can, go from there and see what I can find. And 8, 9 years later, I haven't quite found that like that break, but
Mm.
I just kept making comics because like how Adventure Time, they hired like a bunch of like comic artists back in one of their seasons, a few of their seasons. Um, they did a great job of reaching out to like alternative like comic artists and a lot of humor comic artists on the internet who and regular show too. There's a few cartoon productions that I noticed that hired comic artists. So for a while it's just like, well, if I just keep doing comics then they'll notice they'll say I'll be brought onto one of the productions. That was kind of a cynical way of looking at it, I guess. I didn't treat it seriously until I started noticing that people liked them, and
Right.
I'm like, maybe if I, really take it more seriously, maybe if I really work on it, I can make something interesting. And then this might sound weird or out of place, but like when this book came out, I'm like, I have so many more ideas, and I think with comics, you can really explore more with it, with the form. It's funny. It's like I'm just now like realizing all of this, like after coming out with the book. So I guess I didn't take it quite seriously in the beginning.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Because I have to imagine, I mean, I don't know a lot about storyboarding or like sort of what the ins and outs of that are, but I'm kind of assuming that that's a bit of a closed shop, right? Like that there's not a lot of entry level storyboard positions. Is that wrong?
It's it's more so. I mean, storyboard revisionists. That's the entry level position, and then you're able to kind of move your way in from there. Most of the time, at least that's been my experience or what I've noticed. Yeah, yeah. But storyboard artist in itself, I wouldn't call it necessarily entry level, though. That's something you have to certainly have to work up to.
Yeah, yeah. And is just for my curiosity more than anything else, is
Sure.
this mostly animation versus live action or commercials or things like that?
No, actually, I know a few artists that actually storyboard for Wes Anderson's productions. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, really cool. I'm so jealous. I would say that you're right. It's most, in my opinion, I don't have like a huge experience in that sort of career, but like I have noticed that there are plenty of there's more so cartoons than there are for live action, but live action, I think it's starting to pop up more. Maybe that's just me being optimistic though, but I would say, yeah, I would say more often than not it's for like cartoons and stuff. But
Yeah.
commercial work, I've I have seen those listings before, but commercial work is like ads and stuff. It's not really my bag, so I never really pursued that. But it is always it's always there. There's plenty of options for storyboard artists once you're in the game, but trying
Yeah.
to get into it, it's like you have to learn how to. Sorry, this is another tangent. It's like you have to be pretty focused on what specifically you want to do with your storyboard art or your character art or what you want to do in animation, and you have to like really nail down your portfolio because there's plenty of people that might have your style or might have your talent level, and they just have more focus than you do. It's just how it can happen sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that that's relatively true in almost anything in the arts.
Totally.
Honestly, it's kind of the thing that I find is good and interesting about comics is that comics are what like because it's only you, and maybe you have a collaborator, right? But it's not like you're trying to break into a group or a team of people. You're just making the comic as much for yourself as for a potential audience. And
Yeah,
so there's kind of more opportunity, I guess.
I would say
Um,
so. Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Susan Lomond. How did this book come along?
It came along because I've always had this particular idea. I remember when I was kind of going through pitches and stuff and trying to come up with like the story for what I wanted to do for the book because this is actually the longest story I've done. And so I kind of wanted to go all out. I kind of wanted to do something that I felt like kind of personally attached to. It comes from being, it's hard to explain. I've just always loved doing stories about um, outcasts and weirdos and losers and stuff. I love uh, people that are trying to fit into something, but they're very obtuse, so they don't know what to do. And I thought, well, what if I had a story about someone that that didn't want to fit in, and in fact wanted to kind of break the system that they were in. And I that's a very long way of explaining it, but I just wanted to do a story about what if a genius wanted to destroy someone that did better than her on a test. On it, it's so simple. It's just like I just love doing high school stories, and I love doing stories about outcasts because just for some reason they're just fun to do. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I feel like my answers changed every time someone asks me it. I just really wanted to do a story about a weirdo. That's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I I think that high school stories are a lot of fun because it's when we're still forming who we are, right?
Hmm.
And so it's right, like, so any story, you need to have that narrative arc, right? And the characters need to change. And it strikes me that it's kind of easier to change in high school than it is like once we become adults and we're all locked in to our worlds and the way that we act, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, high school, you're just presented with all these options. In high school, you're about to become an adult. Like you're just like, well, when you're done with high school, now you got college, and then after college, you got family and jobs and stuff like that. So I think you still have that freedom in high school to kind of figure out who you are. But that's also terrifying because you also have a sense of like wanting to fit in too. So there's a lot of different crazy stuff that you're doing, and you're only 18, 19 years old, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I One of the things I really liked about this book was how much it made me think of like old Looney Tunes cartoons, just from the way that Monroe kind of presents herself. She's like one of those old, crazy mad scientists who's going up against Bugs Bunny or something, The speech patterns and everything too.
That's a good comparison. I never thought about it with Looney Tunes. If a lot of people compare it to like 90s cartoons, uh, but Looney Tunes definitely. I grew up on that. So that's a
Yeah.
cool comparison. I grew up on Looney Tunes. I used to watch it all the time, Saturday mornings, you know? She definitely has Monroe definitely has a Looney Tunes quality to her. Definitely, it's like a Road Runner and a Wile E. Coyote situation. Absolutely. She's just,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when something's in her path, she's laser focused on it. She has to take care of it and she can move on to the next thing. I think that's definitely her trajectory of thinking. So it's very Looney Tunes. Her hair is ridiculous. Who has hair like that?
Yeah. I'm thinking of those cartoons where the monster is like all covered in hair,
Yes.
right?
The monster has a name too, but I can't for the
Yeah,
life of me.
I can't remember at the moment. I'm not coming up with what that is, but it's a silly name too. It's like, I don't know. It's almost a name like Monroe, almost, but
I think so,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, the cousin character made me think of that, and the idea, just the idea of it being a giraffe statue that Monroe like puts her dead cousin's brain inside of. I thought that was really funny, you know.
Thank you. It's so much fun to do. I was worried that we weren't able to like put that into a book, because it's just like so weird for a kid's book. Taking the dead brain of your cousin and putting it into this school. school project. It's so it's so ghastly, you know. God, I love
Well, you treat it
Nero.
funny. As long as you treat it funny, it's okay, right? Like
Yeah,
you're not like showing the brain surgery, you know.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's so true. It's like when you see in like some older movies, in order to like not get like a PG-13 or R rating, they made like blood like green or something like that. I think they did that in a few kids movies, you know. So I think I made it a very, and also my editors helped out, but like I made it a very important thing to not really show any blood, or to like not, like you just literally said, to not show the act being done in the first place. I mean, it'd be cool too, but I don't think I have that capacity to draw all that.
Sure. Was it always your intention to do a book that was aimed at kids?
No, actually, I had that question a few times, and no, I this book was just for me when I
Hmm.
was drawing it and when I was writing it. I wanted to do something that I thought was funny, something that I wanted to see out there in the world. Um uh I'm glad it's for kids. I'm glad it. I mean, I hope kids get something out of it. I I don't know how to write for kids. I think I went into this. What would I have liked when I was, you know, a teenager? What would I have kind of been about? And yeah, it just kind of came as I was writing it and drawing it. And after it came out, and people were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna," like a few stories were just like, "Oh, we're gonna put this in the young adult section." I'm like, "Oh, I guess it is a young adult book." It's very strange to like admit that, but like I didn't go into this like thinking, "Oh, I'm making a book for teenagers." I just,
Yeah.
yeah, the idea just hit me, and I just did it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting too because so little of, let's call them alternative comics, which Silver Sprocket is certainly an alternative publisher. Almost all of that is aimed, kind of college and up, right? Like there's a lot of cursing or a lot of, you know, body function humor and things like that. But this is, I mean, yes, there is, digging up your dead cousin and putting their brain in, but it's dealt with so comically that it's kind of an interesting set of choices that I like very much, which is one of the reasons we picked it for the kids club. I thought it was very different than a lot of the books that we pick, but also very, very, very correct for it too.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you pitch this to Sprocket specifically, or did you just start drawing it and then try to find a home for it?
No, Sprocket approached me, asked if I was interested in doing a pitch, and I had a few ideas that they were like, "Oh, this is good, but you have to wait." I mean, they're like, it's either too long or they didn't really click with the character, what have you. And then I kind of asked what they were looking for, and then from there, I wrote out. I kind of sat down and I wrote out two ideas that have been kind of same in the back of my mind. Two really weird ideas that I'm like, well, if they don't like this, then we'll see, right? And it was literally just Monroe's their favorite. They loved Monroe off the bat, like straight up. Like they wanted to go through with that story right away. So I was lucky to kind of go through on that. Drawing Monroe though was really hard. I had a completely different vision of what Monroe looked like.
Hmm.
She looked completely different. Initially, she was really tall, long hair, long uniform hair. Like, and this is another tangent, but like I really wanted to nail down what what she looked like before attempting the book. I am, of course, like other people have done that for their books, but like I almost went through a completely different design, and then after a while, it's not working. And Monroe this came after just there was a lot of sketching and drawing for it. In a sense, I wasn't prepared to, like, when I started the book. A lot of it was definitely dedicated to making the characters. I had to make the right kind of character if I was going to. I told myself, if I'm going to draw her like over and over and over and over and over again, I have to make sure she's fun to draw. You know, so it took a while to get there. A while.
Yeah. There's also a thing in cartooning that you generally want to design characters so that like you can identify them in silhouette, right? So
Yeah,
that you can pick that character out of a lineup and go, that's what Charlie Brown looks like, in a silhouette, right?
yeah,
And yeah, you really captured that with Monroe, just sort of the kind of thing, you know.
yeah. The hair is so much fun to draw. I love drawing the hair. Yeah, you're right. It's something that was stressed. Actually, in art school, I took a character design class, and they were very much like what you just said. You got to have a good silhouette if you want to pick out your character, from a bunch. And that's pretty much it. I wanted to make her. I just want to make her fun to draw. That's just it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so what did you said you gave them a couple pitches and they liked this one the best.
Mhm.
Was it like, did you have the story all figured out at that point? Where was it kind of partially figured out?
I had it figured out. Yeah, I had it when I pitched them the idea. Usually I struggle with the endings, but I had it all mapped out. Knew where how I wanted it to end, and all that stuff. The details. What's funny is that some of the details kind of changed as I was writing it. I kind of like found certain things that I wanted to add to the Monroe's character, and I was able to add it like when I was writing the different scenes of the book. It's funny. I don't recall if Nero, Monroe's cousin, I'm not sure if he was initially her cousin in the book and in the
Hmm.
original pitch. I don't completely recall that. I just knew that Monroe had access to a cemetery, and it just went from there. So just I long story short, I had all the writing down. So it's just like the drawing that I had to get over, or uh I had to finish, which sounds
Yeah.
irresponsible though.
No, not necessarily. I mean, there's different ways of doing comics, and
Mm.
and none of them are correct, or none of them are incorrect. I guess is the better way
Yeah.
to say it. They're
Yes.
all correct.
They're all
But
incorrect.
I talk to people who they write first and they focus on the writing first, and then
Mm.
the illustrations afterthought. And I've talked to other people who like, oh, I just start drawing and I see where the story ends up,
Totally.
which I always find kind of fascinating, that kind of that right brain, left brain thing, and in the
Absolutely.
middle you make comics.
I've seen I've seen it float around too a few times where someone's just like, I had the title. I really like this title. And I need to figure out the story and the characters. I'm like, how do you do that? I've tried to do it a few times, and they're terrible ideas, terrible. Like, or just ideas I clearly got from like a movie I just saw or something, you know?
Right, right, right. So did you write out a full script first, or just sort of an outline, or
Oh yeah. I was doing another like long story while I was doing this one. And that one I did without a script. I kind of just came up with it like when I was drawing everything out, and it was kind of a nightmare. So with this one, I want to have everything. everything sorted. So I did two scripts. I did the action script of what happens in every scene, and then I did like a dialogue script. And then I just organized. I printed it out, and then I highlighted which one went, which dialogue went to which scene. How can I lay it out on the page? A lot of thumbnailing, a lot of piecing it together. So it's like if I can explain it well enough, I had it once I had it like the dialogue and the action put together. I would do it out in boxes. I would do it like thumbnailing out each panel in boxes. I'm like, all right, how many panels can go on this page and how many panels can fit on that page? And it was kind of went from there. It's just like kind of like puzzling it together, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Because this is, as you said, the longest thing that you've done, was it a challenge for you to figure that kind of a thing out, like what you can fit on a page, or like what the page turn is, for example?
Like, was it a challenge? Oh, you mean like trying to like, with the length, you mean? Like, yeah, it was a challenge. Like I said, I knew what I wanted to happen in the story. I knew I wanted like from A to, A to Z. But like it was actually it was easy, it was not easy because I also the more I thought about Monroe, the more I came up with ideas for her. I just kept thinking of, well, how is she going to get this project? How is she going to get the art project? Well, she has to talk to a kid. What if the kid didn't know who she was? What if she was insulted by that? What if she ran into a roadblock because she exploded something and destroyed the gym? So scenes kind of came out because it it got easier because I just kept coming up with more ideas I wanted to put in the book. I kept thinking of like more situations that she could have been thrust into while trying to just make her plan happen. So
Yeah.
it got easier, but harder because I also had to keep it. I had to keep the length, the amount of pages for the book. It had to be under like a certain amount of pages. So I had to keep all my ideas like kind of not basic per se, but I had to keep it. I had to kill my darlings, as they say. I had to get rid of certain things. I had to, yeah. So what was hard was just trying to organize everything and keep the story concise.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of the nature of comics, isn't it? Right? Like to kind of edit things down so that they're as tight as they can be, right? Like
Yep.
even when you're deciding what's in any given panel for the comic, right? Like
Hmm.
you know, I always kind of go to the Lucy pulling the ball away from Charlie Brown. Like you could show Lucy placing the ball, Lucy holding the ball, Charlie starts running. There's some sweat coming off. Like you could show
Yeah,
all of those things, but none of that, most of that, doesn't actually make it better or funnier, right? Like narrowing it down, getting it tighter, getting it shorter makes it funnier.
absolutely. There's actually an interesting. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this, but there was a Tumblr account or a Twitter account, I think, where they would take Charlie Brown comics, Peanuts comics, and they would take out one or two panels. And they did a few other comics too, but like the people would often say that it was funnier, right, cutting out certain stuff. But sometimes you just need a little bit of like breathing room before you hit them with the joke. I agree. When you're trying to sell a story in comics form, sometimes, if you'll agree, sometimes the reader can get impatient. If you don't,
Sometimes, yeah.
sometimes, yeah, it's like if you're not able to, I feel like humor is you got to have just the right timing. You got to have the perfect, the perfect, what do you call it? The perfect execution, the perfect. You have to, because comedy can be all about surprise, you know. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of editing, but sometimes you get like too much editing. Sometimes you can leave out something that I don't know, like I said, like breathing room for like the characters, you know. It's
Well, that kind of
yeah.
gets back to what I was trying to ask earlier is like how much you knew your intentions when you started. Did you know
Mm.
this was going to be a comedy? Was it I'm making something funny or just I have this idea about kind of a crazy mad girl and let's see what happens with it.
It's a little bit of A and B. I wanted to make a comic about a mad girl, but yeah, I wanted to make it funny. I love humor. I just I knew I couldn't make a serious horror like yet. I'm not. That's not. That's. I have a lot of respect for horror artists and writers because that's a different bag entirely. I just want to make something funny.
Yeah.
I I just knew I from my inspirations. It's like I wanted to just do something. I guess not make it explicitly humor, but that's definitely like the. It's. I know I'm getting off track, but it's just like I wanted to. I can't not make humor comics because there's just so much fun to do, and there's just so much. There's so much humor in like every day. Like, how can you not write that? I don't know, man. It's
Sure.
high school's funny, man. So much,
It is.
so much crazy stuff can happen to you when you're in high school, and if you don't laugh at it, then what's the point? You know?
Yeah, no, very much so. One of Monroe's biggest characteristics, not a physical one though, is her vocabulary. Uses lots and lots of big words,
Oh yeah,
maybe inappropriately big words in a lot of cases.
yeah.
Was that difficult to write like that, or was it? I could see it also being easy, like
Mm.
going over the top for words.
Oh, totally. It was hard because I don't use big words, so I had to. I what I did was is I wrote out what she was trying to say, and I kind of looked back at it and like, how could I put this in the way Monroe would say it? So a lot of it was just taking the time to just research, like, how could she say it? Um, I wish I could think of an example. If you have an example, I mean, it would help. It's just, I, no, I don't. But there's so there's a great Nancy comic when Nancy Nancy and Sluggo are meeting this new kid who's like a smart kid, and Nancy says hi to him, and he says felicitations,
Right.
and Sluggo is like frowning at him. He's like, "You're right." I go, "Why take the extra effort to say that big word? What are you trying to prove? Who are you trying to prove it to?" With Monroe, she's just trying to prove that she is smarter than everybody. So she has to put it out there that she's smarter by using big words. And I think she's built herself into like a rhythm or like a nature of like, well, I have to do this now because this is who I am. And it was hard to write that because I don't do that. I don't do that. I think anyone they have a word that they like to use, or they might seek out a word that they want to use. But like I think we get nervous about using big words, you know. So
Sure.
with Monroe, it got easier to write over time. I think at first it was awkward because I'm like, well, I don't want to make the dialogue too stilted or too like stiff, you know. Because I think if you use too many big words or like you go to the thesaurus too many times, I think it gets bogged down. I think the reader's just like, all right, we get it, or what does that mean? And they have to keep like bookmarking it and coming back to it later. Like, oh, I had to look up what that word was. I don't know. It It got easier though, much easier. You just kind of have to learn the balance of like what this character was, and it's funny because as the book goes on and she gets more and more tired, she kind of loses that desire to use those big words. I think that's true of a lot of people. I think the more tired and we get, the the less we care about the appearance, our appearances, or how we present ourselves to people.
Yeah, no, that I would agree with that as well. I always think it's okay to send kids to the dictionary, honestly,
Yeah,
because I think it's how you learn, right? Like,
true.
using big words, especially for comedic purposes, I think works really well. And there's also just lots of, there's lots of bug, blug, right? Like
Yeah,
there's a great balance between the two things.
she grumbles a lot. She makes a lot of mouth noises.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, uh, let's talk about Susan for a minute. Do you think that Susan is as fully fleshed out of a character as Monroe, or is Susan kind of just like an object? If
I
that makes sense.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. I would have to say, uh, what I tried to do was I did try to make her like her an object, at the beginning of the book, because that's how Monroe treats her,
Yeah.
or treated her over the story. Oh, she isn't in it a lot, but she is a very important part of the book. She kind of What I wanted to do was make her seem more mysterious by the end of the book. Like, how much does she
Mm.
actually know? And she's not as dumb as we may think, or as Monroe thinks. She's not just like a football jock, but that is a very important part to her character. I she's not fleshed out per se, not as much as I would want in a first book, but it wasn't about her. I guess it was more so about Monroe figuring out she wasn't just this particular person. So by the end of the book, avoiding spoilers, Monroe starts to discover that she is actually a little more mysterious than she lets on. I like that idea of uh, stereotypical high school types have something underlying to them, because oftentimes when we're like artists, we think of ourselves as like the mysterious type, or like, you want to understand me. I make paintings, I draw, I write. I'm very mysterious and unapproachable. But sometimes unapproachable people are the ones that don't show you everything of who they are. So
Yeah.
I think Susan in this state is definitely not fleshed out, but on purpose. I think if I flesh her out too much, then, well, one, to be a much longer book, and two, I feel like that would kind of mix Monroe up a little bit too. I
Yeah.
had to pace it out a bit.
Yeah. No, I think you did great. I was just sort of trying to get the shape in your head. That's all.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk maybe a little bit about craft. Do you are you pen and paper? Are you digital? Like, how do you work?
Not digital. I
Okay.
Digital, but I have so much fun of with traditional sketching.
Hmm.
Um, I work mostly in digital. I have I think it's a Wacom. Yeah, a Wacom tablet. That's my go-to. I'm able to get my ideas out faster at home on the tablet, but I love sketching. I have like an entire book full of Monroe sketches and Monroe ideas and just little scrawlings and stuff that I think a lot of artists have the same problem, that when you try to take the sketch and put it in the final form, it's just hard to replicate that energy.
Hmm.
If I can make a book just off of sketchy like traditional sketches, that'd be great, but that's a different conversation altogether. When I was making this book, though, I tried to keep it as sketchy or as loose as I can because I'm I'm still learning. My final drawings are still a little stiff sometimes, so I just try to keep it as loose as I can, just to try to
Yeah.
replicate how it looks when I draw it traditionally. So, but I work mostly digital. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think there's good energy in here. It doesn't feel too stiff to me. Yeah, I would not give stiff as a criticism at this at all.
thank you.
Um, yeah. Do you do kind of multiple passes through? I mean, are you doing a pencil stage and then an ink stage, or are you kind of doing finished art as you draw it?
Finished art as I draw it. I
Yeah.
more usually that's what I do. I do very loose drawing to start out with, and then I do multiple layers on top of it, just trying to figure out how I want the arms to look or the legs to look or what expression I look. I get so many layers. But once I get close to like the final look of it, it's less about doing one final ink layer over it. It's more so just, oh yeah, I'll just clean up the sketchiness of it and move on to the next part.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it is very, sorry, it's not very, it's just me being very, trying to capture again the sketchiness of the initial drawing.
Sure. Sure, that makes a lot of sense. You colored this obviously yourself as well, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, that was hard.
Hmm.
I initially I wanted to do this in black and white. I wanted because there's this book I really like called, I believe it's called Kintaro by Shigeru Mizuki. I modeled like almost everything
Yeah.
after that book, though the dimensions of it, a lot of the humor, and that book was in black and white. I'm like, oh, I'll do black and white with screen tone, and they're like, we actually think with this kind of book, you should do it in color. I'm like, oh, okay. And it took a lot of experimenting and trying to figure out the swatches and stuff. Coloring's not my forte. I had to kind of push myself to learn it or be better at using it.
What's the biggest challenge for you for color? Is it kind of the tonality of a particular page, or is it how moments pop?
For this book specifically, I wanted to have everything to a theme, but I didn't want to have that pop that you just mentioned. So the theme is it's more like the color theme of wherever Monroe is. So whenever she's at school, the color theme is kind of against her because she's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And when she's at home, it's all a bunch of reds because that kind of goes with her color theme. She feels most comfortable there. And then when she gets to the dance at the end of the book, she starts to feel more comfortable because she is pulling off the final plan. And she feels not right at home, but she definitely feels more comfortable. So it kind of went with her thing, the color thing went with that. So, but when I wanted something to pop, it's hard because sometimes you have to look at it like, what's the color of disgust? People would say lime green. What's the color of sadness? It's blue. But it was, I presented my own problem to myself. I wanted to make every scene different, though. I want to make every scene have different um, colors to it. I wanted to try to use every color I could. But again, I wanted to just pair everything with how Monroe was feeling and how comfortable she was in her environment. Her house
Sure.
isn't actually all red. It's actually a completely different color, but that's how she was feeling. And another thing was I kind of did that with the people too. the background characters kind of went with the environment as well. And the only person that stood out for the most part was Susan, because subconsciously, Susan was the only person that Monroe noticed. She doesn't realize where her true feelings lie. She think she thinks it's all like one particular feeling, but she doesn't realize that she's noticing her for a reason. And so when you're doing that, I think you kind of have to guide the reader to that. Like, why is Susan colored in this way? Why the other characters are colored in that way? So it's I was trying to be subtle about a few things here and there, but it's hard when you have so many different ideas going on.
Yeah. Was this the first thing you've done in color?
Um, mm-mm, it wasn't. I did another short comic. I actually mentioned it before, the one that became kind of a nightmare just because I didn't really plan it out well enough.
Mhm.
It was just my other short book. It's called Hopper Goes to a Party, and it's about a completely different character. And so with that one I actually did what you mentioned before. I wanted to make certain moments pop with color. That one was a little bit more monochromatic. So I was able to use color a little bit more. I'm not gonna say fun, but a little more basic than how I use it in Bring Me Ahead of Susan Lomond. I would say though that in long form, this is only my second project I've used color. Usually it's
Right.
black and white for the longer stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how about lettering? This is a font, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, not hand lettered.
It is actually both. I One of my editors, Karina Taylor, I appreciate her so much. She took my handwriting and made it into a font.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. I got to tinker with that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that the onomatopoeia and stuff are hand
Oh
drawn,
yes,
but
yeah.
there's definitely a consistency in the dialogue that, and so what for you is the biggest challenge in lettering? And I ask because your balloons are relatively big,
Hmm.
and I'm wondering if you had a lot of the balloons drawn first, uh, before you started adding the actual lettering.
Yeah, for the most part, that's how I did it. I did the balloons first, and then I put in the dialogue.
Yeah,
And then sometimes if it didn't work, I would just go back and redraw it. For the most part, you know.
right. Are the
Yeah.
balloon? They're just another layer on in your digital. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say there were certain times when I had to do the text first, but that's a little more difficult. I usually do all the drawings first on a quick little pass. I figure out what the background can look like and where the character may go, but I don't fully draw out the character. I have to get the text down first. So it was, yeah, just a lot of drawing the speech bubbles first.
Mhm.
And that was all hand drawn and hand filled in and all that. Um, I like doing speech bubbles because there's so much that you can do with them.
Mhm.
Sometimes, especially in like manga, like you can almost you can use speech bubbles as like action. I
Yeah.
think it's a fun idea.
Yeah, I think particularly of the sequence where she's talking to the student who built the giraffe statue, and it's just
Yeah.
like just a wall of text that is overlapping the various things that Monroe is saying,
Hmm.
and it's just it's very clear that that's what this is the way the person is speaking.
Hmm. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to draw. I did another one too near the end of the book when Monroe gets squashed by a speech bubble. That was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, no, this is you did really well here. This is really good stuff, man. I loved it quite a lot, and
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Um, do you think that there are more stories with Monroe?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually writing a short story, short comic for her right now. I want to have it out in a few months here. I have so many ideas for her, so many. And it's funny because you asked before if I was approached to do the pitch or if I was shopping around for someone to get the, publish this comic.
Yeah,
And I went into this thinking, oh, it's just a, one shot thing. But the more I drew Monroe, the more I wrote out this story, I'm like, oh, there's so much I can do with this. Monroe is so much fun to draw. And so is Susan. Like I said, there's a lot of mysterious things that she hasn't let on yet. And so I would love to do more stories for her. I have like weird little characters that I want to introduce. There's so many different things I want to do with the story. We'll see. We'll see. I'm whether it gets published or not, or self-published or whatever, what have you. I'm definitely going to put it out there.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that when you find a character that works and you find a milieu that works, like trying to build on that's always a good idea, right?
Yeah.
Because, in terms of having a career as a cartoonist, it is it is finding those characters that builds that career, right? Like
Yeah.
it's difficult to think of very many cartoonists who keep changing bikes, as it were,
Hmm.
whereas, we absolutely think of Charles Schultz because of the Peanuts. Nobody really thinks about whatever his first one was. What is it, the Wee Kids or something like that? He had some stuff before that, but it no, it was once he found that particular thing. Same thing with Ernie Bushmiller with Nancy and Sluggo, right? Like
mm,
once you find that thing, then like building on it and going back to it, like, is how you build your career as a cartoonist.
I agree. I think a lot of people are. I think, as I shouldn't assume this, but I've sometimes have had that fear of being tied down to a particular, I guess, singular thing like that. Sometimes, you know, I remember I did like fan art of like Simpsons and Peanuts actually, and that's how people knew me for a while was just those two things. So it when you are making that work, you're right. It's when you have that particular idea that works and can produce ideas and produce more ideas and more projects, and you just got to go with it. You just got to keep seeing where else you can take it. I think I don't know, and if people want to see it, then like why not? I think for me, I like having different ideas and characters I can go to. I like having multiple. I shouldn't say it to like multiple stories to rely on, but sometimes I have an idea that wouldn't pertain to Monroe, and so it's just like finding just knowing how to. I guess getting off track here, but it's just like finding your next project. It can be difficult because you don't want to overexpose people too. I feel like I don't want people to get sick of Monroe, so I kind of want
Mhm.
to like evenly pace it out too. I get it. I overthink things as you can probably tell, but it's just as you can tell, I'm very neurotic when
Sure.
it comes to stuff like that. But like I just want people to like Monroe as much as I do, but I also don't want people to get sick of her.
Yeah. Well, I think that you have found something that works and strikes me as a character that has a lot of potential for future stories. It's you use the example of Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, right? Like
Hmm.
I think that Monroe could very much be a Wile E. Coyote kind of character,
Absolutely.
that you could just keep going back to and just play out in different scenarios, you know, and even keep her kind of frozen in time where she is, right? Like she doesn't have to develop as a character, especially as
No,
long as the wacky plans are funny, you know?
there was I remember I wanted to, when I was kind of still, plugging away at cartoon stuff. I remember I was developing like my own little pitch for something that never really happened, but one of the common um, advice, like tips that I was circulating online was try to avoid monster of the week kind of episodes because it gets a little too repetitive and stuff. So
Sure.
I I want to. You're right. There's so many different like hijinks and stuff that Monroe can get into. I also just want to get into like, because the whole thing about where she's at too. She's influenced by the town, and the town influence and she tries to influence the town. So her
Yeah.
hijinks will plenty of hijinks that she get into, but I also like the idea of she is forced into the hijinks. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like potentially she's a durable enough character that you build up a supporting cast around her,
Hmm.
and it will just start generating stories by itself at a certain point.
I appreciate that thought because I think so too. I think there's a lot of trouble that she can get into. There's a lot of
Mhm.
dumb things that she will that she will fall into. Yeah. So there's so many ideas. There's so many different things that I have for her, and it's funny because again, it's based off of like a small town, and I think when you think of small towns, you're like, well, it's so boring there, but like you don't know how much there is in a small town. Once, like, if you live there long enough, you can see the different the different eccentricities of it. Am I saying that word right?
Yeah,
Eccentricities, yeah, of it.
yeah,
So I think that's something I want to do with Monroe. I want her to kind of discover like there's more to Susan, there's more to the town than she had believed.
yeah. No, I think that's great. Have you already spoken to Sprocket about possibly doing more?
Not yet. I'm letting this breathe a little bit. The first book breathe a little bit and see how it does and see how it sells and stuff. Not to get cynical about it, but like I definitely have an idea I want to pitch to them, and that will definitely come. I want to. I think I took this first book so seriously, and if it's my first book being published, I want to make sure that it's done right. And I think I'll make this next one like I'll take it just as seriously. I want to see if I'm going to pitch something, I want to make sure that it's something that I want to draw over and over again.
Sure. Sure. Well, as I say, I think that you found a good vein here. I think a mad scientist is always a clever idea. I like the supporting world that you built around it. I love your cartooning. I think yeah, Monroe and Nero can be like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good job, dude. Good job. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy
Yeah.
with it. I'm glad
Yeah.
people like it so far.
Yeah. No, excellent. Yeah. I mean, to the point that, not only is it going to our kids club, but it's also going to the San Francisco Unified School District into middle schools.
That blew my mind.
And I think they're going to love it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. 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 Because, the notion of kind of vengeance, but then it turns out you learn that that's not the way to go. I mean, I think that's a great kind of theme, and it's a theme that can be repeated too. Yeah, no, I think this is great. I think this is truly good, man. So
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We'll see what more ideas
Yeah.
come out, man.
Yeah. Don't be too neurotic is what I'm trying to say. You hit the ball here. So, like that you're doing good, bud.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you can already
Yeah.
tell the gears are already turning. Like, what can I do next? What about this? What about that? You already know.
Yeah. So do you have your next graphic novel kind of thought about? Whether it's Monroe or something else. Do you know what you're doing next?
I do. I do have the next idea. Silver Sprocket liked it, and then I'll have to bug them about it and see if they want to go through with that instead. But um, it's not so much a kid's book per se. I'm not, again, when I go into like writing stuff, it isn't, I don't necessarily think about the audience. I think more so about like, what do I want to do and
Sure.
what do I want to put out there? I think you already said I'm trying not to be neurotic about it. I'm like, well, should I make the next book different from the first book? Should I do something that the audience liked? So I definitely have another idea. Actually, again, I have the next book idea for Monroe, but I also have the second pitch that Silver Sprocket liked. So it's just as weird.
Cool. Well, can't wait. Do you have kind of any rough idea about when we might see it?
Um, I want to get working on it right away. I want to have it out by like next year, early next year. That'd be really
Nice.
cool.
Nice.
It's shorter, so maybe I can have it done by the end of the year.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see, man. I just want to. I want to knock it out right now. But next year, hopefully. Yeah.
I mean, I would say that broadly, as a cartoonist, being able to get something out on the market at least once a year is kind of essential
Absolutely.
to like building a career and to getting people to know who you are, and so that when they see your name, they go, "Oh, Connor B. I like his stuff."
Mhm.
I'll get more.
That's a good thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I'm looking at artists I admire, I'm like, man, they put out something every year. How do they do that?
Yep.
That's something I want to do. Just be
Yeah.
constantly working on something.
Yeah. No, I mean, even if you can even get a book out more frequently than that really can help as well in terms of building yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you kind of another odd question. What was the thinking of going by I mean, I'm not going to call it a nom de plume, but going Connor B as opposed to using your full name, whatever it might be?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I just liked how it sounded, I guess. I'm really into just doing lowercase for like everything. I like kind of just keeping it simple. I don't know. I like my name, of course, but like it's just Connor B. That's just it. I don't know. It's a good question.
It's all cool. I thought I'd ask. It popped into my head. You ask stuff.
You're the first
not every
person to
question
ask
is a winner.
that.
Yeah.
I've never had to think about it.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, is there anything I didn't think to ask you about the book?
No. Was there anything that you were curious about? Because I always like answering like lore questions about Monroe. I like talking about her. You mentioned before about if I have any more ideas. What's great is I have a great community on like Tumblr. Tumblr is pretty good again, and there's an exodus when like a bunch of them left back in the day, like a few years ago. Um, but like I feel like artists and the audience is back at Tumblr, and it's been a lot of fun interacting with um, people that like the book over there because they keep asking questions about Monroe and like Susan. They're like, what are their parents like? What kind of music do they like? So it's been really fun answering people's questions about who like Monroe is. So if you have anything that you're curious
Yeah.
about, I'd be happy to answer it. It's just more so just like,
Yeah, no,
you
no. I
know,
mean, I think I asked all the things that I had to say. Like because I think the character's pretty fully fleshed, right? Like I get who Monroe is. I think
yeah.
and that's why as I say, I think that there's a lot of potential there. I can see you doing a new Monroe story every single year and like building up a library where you've got 8 books sitting on the shelf all next to each other.
Oh,
I can
totally.
absolutely see that happening.
Totally. That's
So,
the dream.
yeah, 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 yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up then and go to the last question. And the last question is very much like the first. I asked this of everyone. This is, as I think a series of interviews. We've been doing these for 10 years now, and we do 2 interviews a month with cartoonists. And so we get a lot of people who watch these who want to be cartoonists themselves. And what I hear from a lot of people is, this really thrills me and is exciting to me, but I don't think I'm good enough, or are my ideas worth it, or like they just don't have any faith in themselves, right? And so if you had to give a piece of advice to someone who wants to make comics but isn't sure of themselves, what might that be? It can be something, physical and practical. It can be something kind of emotional or spiritual even, or it can be anything you want. But what would be that piece of advice that you might give to someone who's like, I want to do this, but I don't think I'm good enough?
I've been there. Oh, you just got to do it. I have run into people who are who do say that, like, oh, I love comics, but I can't do them. I can't draw. And it's in my opinion, it's less about can't, and it's more about if you want to do it. The best piece of advice I ever got was when I was in college. It's like junior year. Um, I had a teacher, Stephen Botts. It was his last uh, semester teaching, and he and I would talk every so often after class because he was a very straightforward, you know, straightforward guy. He cut a lot of crap out of his lessons. He was very honest with every student that he had. I appreciate that. So I asked him, because I wasn't doing so well with my art. It was kind of middling away. I wasn't really doing much with it. And I asked him, so I was thinking about going to like screenwriting, and I asked him what I should do. And he had a similar situation when he was a student. He told me that the advice that he got was, if there's anything other than art that you want to do, then do it. And I think if you want to make comics, you will make comics. If it looks bad, good. I think people are so worried about what people would think of their work and how the algorithm or how social media will respond to it, that they don't do it. When there's so many interesting ideas that we don't see because people are nervous about not putting the work out there. So if I had to give advice to like young artists, it's just do it. Do the art that you want to see. Do the art that makes you want to draw. Comics can be anything that you want it to be. And unfortunately, everyone's bad at something when they first start out at it. Not unfortunately, fortunately, because I think it's good. The more art that you do, you will eventually get to a point. It may more than likely will take a few years, but you can stop and look back and be like, wow, I used to make that, and now I'm making this. It's so important for the artist to just keep making work, because if you're not doing something that you want to do, then what's the point of all this? It's just important just to keep drawing and to keep making work, because I don't know, I think bad drawings are more interesting than good drawings. I think weird comics are better than mainstream comics, not to get Not to get too into that sort of thing, but like I like alternative weird stuff because I think more often than not, it comes from a very honest and earnest place. So just do weird stuff, do bad stuff, keep doing it until you get good at it, but keep making stuff that you want to make. Yeah, that'd be my
Yeah,
advice.
I see it. That's great, man. That's great. Connor, I really appreciate your time this morning. I
Thank
hope you
you.
had some fun.
I did. I feel like I got off topic only like 5 or 6 times, but I appreciate your patience.
Now, off topic is where all the fun stuff happens, you know?
I appreciate that. Thank you for your
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah. Hey, you sitting there at home. How you doing? Everything okay? Everything okay? I hope so. You know, you're sitting there, you don't know what to read, you don't know what to do. I got to tell you, bring me the head of Susan Lomond. This is funny. This is kind of thrilling. It's got a lot of big words, but in a really funny way. You're really, really going to enjoy this. So go and get a copy of this book. You're going to love it. You can get it from us. The URL will be on the screen here. But otherwise, just get it. Get it from the library or something if you have to. Get it from wherever you need to, because it's a really good book. I got some thank yous to make. First and foremost, I want to thank Jordan, my producer, who does a bunch of stuff that you at home don't see, but without him, we would not have a show. So thank you, Jordan. I want to thank Ben for running the show today, setting up the cameras, doing all the work. There's a whole production here. Again, you guys don't see it, but the show wouldn't happen without that. I want to thank all my staff. I want to thank Kat and Katie, and Chrissy and Max for being a great staff, letting me do this. You know, if it wasn't for them, I would definitely not have time to be able to sit and talk to cartoonists, and I love talking to cartoonists. So thank everyone there. I want to thank all the people who are subscribed to this club, to the channel. I mean, thank you for watching. Tell your friends, and if you like the thing that we're doing, then consider joining the clubs. The clubs are much like for any small business right now. You know, you have to do things outside of your direct business to keep going, and the club is our ongoing fundraiser. And you get really good comics, and you get good interviews with good creators, and I just think that it really is a great little ecosystem, and so we'd love it if you participated. And you know, more than anything else, I gotta thank people like Connor right here. Hi, Connor, again, because you know, without guys like Connor doing comics, doing things that are personal and feel real to them, I would not have a comic book store. I would be sitting in a stationery store full of blank pages, which is not what I want to do. I would much rather do this. So, dude, thank you so much, man. Yeah, yeah. Hey, the next couple of books. Next month's book for the Kids Club is A Song for You and I by Kay O'Neill, with a shiny cover there. Woo! Kay O'Neill is a great cartoonist, and we will be talking to them from New Zealand. And so that will be really fun. That's next month's Kids Club. And then the next Adult Club is a very quirky kind of superhero book called The Pedestrian, about a guy who speed walks around town and doesn't exactly fight crime, but he changes people's lives. So look for that. Look for those two interviews as the next couple. We're thank you, man. I hope you had a good time. And I most especially want to see what you do for the next decade and more. I cannot wait to read more comics from you. If they're anything as entertaining as this one, everyone's going to love them. So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
oh, my pleasure, man. Very good. We will see everybody at next month's club, and take care.